JSA issue 11, Geoff Johns and David Goyer writing with. Now I got this from DC Wiki. I don't remember reading this on the page, but I just said Buzz on art.
It was Buzz was on the. There was someone doing pencils and someone doing the breakdowns.
Right.
So Buzz was doing the pencils, and we had Bear, Bair, that is on breakdowns.
Buzz and Bear.
Buzz and Bear.
That still sounds made up to me. This doesn't sound real.
I know, but that I'm checking. I'm looking at the credits page in the issue right now. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, JSA issue 11, and things escalate very quickly, and
this was one of those issues where I read the first page. I went, "Oh,
it's this one.
We're doing this story."
Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, I did the same thing. As soon as I saw Al's mom in the plane, I went, "Oh, it's this one."
Yeah,
I knew what it was. It starts off with Al, of course, Rothstein being Atom Smasher, in case you've not got all the names yet. And I wouldn't blame you, there's a lot of characters. We're learning them as we go. But his mum's on the plane, and she's basically talking to this young woman. She's like, hey, my son's not, met a nice woman yet, blah, blah, blah. And she's kind of like, she's got that look in her eye. And then Cobra shows up on the screen and basically says, yeah, I'm going to crash your plane. And this is basically it. And I want to compliment the writing here, because this little note at the bottom of this page that leads into the 2-page spread and the next page, no, this can't be happening, Terry Rothstein thinks. And then you see the plane exploding in the next page, and it just has a little caption that says, my son is a superhero. This is a character who is introduced in one page and is killed off in the very next, and somehow it has impact.
Oh, it absolutely does. And I think I want to really highlight the name of this arc here is called Split. And I think the use, there are reasons for that. We'll get into that. It splits the team later. We'll get to that. But the page that it reveals that is a split page double spread, with the top half being this plane explosion, and then the second half being the JSA kind of round tabling around this with Bones.
Yeah, and Bones.
But just the double split there being, the way that they worked the title arc into the page layout here, I think is really great art stuff.
Yeah, and on top of that, of course, the reason why it's called Split is because the team have to split into two, because there's two threats at the same time. One being Cobra, and the fact that Cobra is saying that if you don't, give me, he's wanting all the money? I think something like that.
He wants something or other. I don't know. Because if not, he's going to take out all the world leaders.
Yeah, he's going to take out all the cities, basically, all the capital cities. Yeah. So pretty major stuff. And the team, and when we see Al at the table, because I was reading this, I was like, I can't remember. Does he already know? Did he find out here? But he already knows. You just see Canary kind of holding them, she can't even fit her arm around him, but he's just kind of distraught. It's good stuff. And then out of nowhere, the old Star Spangled Kid shows up. It's wait a minute.
Sylvester Pemberton just walks in and be like, what are you all doing? This is my team, you bunch of chumps.
And they basically get very accusatory of each other and don't know what's going on. And then it's our man who basically kind of realizes that something's not alright with the timelines. And the extent is, now correct me if I'm wrong, I couldn't remember. Have we encountered extant before in JSA yet?
Not in this book.
Not in this book yet. Okay, go. I couldn't remember if it popped up yet. So I've not read the big event that kind of did the extant thing that that brought Hawk and turned them into extant. I've not read that. Was that 0 Hour? No, it wasn't 0 Hour, was it? Was it?
I don't know. My first thought was 0 Hour as well, but I don't think it is. I did the same thing.
I think it might be 0 Hour. People can tell us in the comments. I think it's 0 Hour though. But anyway, so the extant is messing with the timeline, and this is why we have this weird splinter here where this other Star Spangled Kid shows up, and this okay, we have to deal with this now. We can't just let him run around rampant. And they even mention all the people that he killed as well, because he killed the original Midnight, he killed our man, he killed the Hawks.
That's the level of threat that this is, and it was 0 Hour,
cool.
It's more just no, this is a villain who was enough for a line wide event. This is not some chump change thing, and to just throw that in as, oh, by the way, here's a second plot to deal with, is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, so Sans okay, we have to split in two. Obviously, our man with the other ship has to go after extant because no one else can do it.
Time ship.
Sorry, time ship, yeah. And so it's like, okay, so I'll lead the team to go and deal with Cobra, who's on.
Yeah.
What island's he on again? I forget.
Black Hawk.
Black Hawk Island. There you go.
Yeah.
I knew it was
yeah,
an notable one. I knew it was one that we knew. I just couldn't remember which one it was.
Oh yeah. And they're like, okay, well, let's call in the reserves because we might need some more bodies on this one.
Yeah. So Hippolyta comes in, Starman comes in, Dr. Midnight comes in, the new Dr. Midnight. So we see a little bit on the time ship with Stargirl. Well, she's not called that yet, obviously, still. But she's talking to Spider Kid, and he's like, "Hey, like, I can teach you how to use that belt if you want." And she's like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So, but that's basically, we see them go off into a vortex, basically, and we just see Extant sort of sneaking up behind them, and that's basically it. We don't get any more of this plot, this issue. Obviously,
they're the next issue, I assume.
Yeah, we're saving that for next issue. We stick with the other team, who are in a jet. Starman's there. And they're sneaking into this old base within Black Hawk Island, and they've all got their mouth breathers on. They go inside, and they kind of sneak around, and Sand's going through the floors. Atom Smasher's smashing. That sounds redundant to say, but yeah,
it's what he does best.
He's angry. He's upset. One of the little subtle things here I really like is that when you see Canary and Midnight fighting, they're fighting kind of side by side. If you remember right, we met Midnight through Canary. Canary was in trouble, and he saved her. So they've already worked as a team before in his introduction. And at the end of the page, he says, "Nice work, Midnight." And he like cracks a little joke about, crack no jokes about just what the Doctor ordered.
Yeah.
So
but they're making quite the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hinting that there's a pairing here of sorts, just subtly.
Yeah, it's not overt. It's more just they've got a bit of a connection.
Yeah, they're building up some camaraderie. And, so I did appreciate the joke here because we get an introduction to another character.
Starman's blasting around with the staff.
Yes, and we get a sphere, which of course leads to Mr. Terrific, who, if you remember, was given the choice of joining the JSA. Sand did extend him that offer. At the very least, he said, "Come visit sometime." So they did set this up. This was way back in the Sand issue, where he was like getting a deal in his powers. But Terrific's there. He's mapped out the area, and he's there to help. So, but there's a Phantasm joke.
I knew that was what you were gonna.
Oh yeah,
about.
It's great. I love it. Starman cracks a joke about Phantasm. If you've seen Phantasm, you'll know that there's flying chrome balls in that kill people. They're glorious.
Yeah, Starman's a little terrified of them.
Yes, he doesn't like it very much. So, and and obviously I'm thinking, should they have brought Al along for this mission? Because he's like, yeah, if we get to that, if we get to Cobra, you save him for me. Like, he's very upset.
It's very personal for him.
Yeah. So, Sand goes into this control room where he takes out all the dudes, walks through the wall using his powers, and that's kind of it. But of course, as he's in there, because he's there to save, because they've got this. Oh, who was it again? I've sort of glossed over the name. Airwave. Thank you. Airwave. They're using him essentially to do what they're doing with all electronics. That's why they can control the plane. That's why they can broadcast their video signal worldwide. They're using his powers to do this. Airwave is I mean, he's basically just like a D-list villain that's been held captive here. I don't think we are alone in probably never having heard of him before this issue.
No, they're just using him because he's expendable.
Yeah. But of course, there's a great panel in here where sneaking up behind Sand is... Oh god, what was his name? Catalyst. Yes. So, one of Airwave's former teammates, yeah. So again, another D-lister. I mean, it's notable that these characters they're throwing in here, which I'm sure are from history, that I'm sure Johns is pulling from obscure places, are relatively new to us, because even though I've read this before, like, every single one I'm having to double check, oh, who's this guy called again? Like...
Yeah, I'm with you, and I've read this. I mean, this is probably my third or fourth time on this specific batch of issues.
Yeah.
And I can still struggle with some of these smaller names.
Yeah, I don't know who Catalyst does generally. But he's able to shock him. And we get this big ending where basically Cobra wants to show the world the consequences for them trying to save the day and interfere with Cobra's plans. And he broadcasts to the world. We see it broadcast in Times Square. Him murdering with a laser beam Sand. That's the end of the issue. He blasts it. We don't see it's off panel, the actual contact, but and then he just laughs maniacally and that is the end of the issue. It's a hell of an ending. Like, as far as the ends of issues go, this is a pretty good one.
I love that final panel of the laughing. It's very Joker-esque in the style of lettering, the way the laughs just come up in the red text behind him. It's not constrained to any sort of bubble or text box or anything. It's just the entire panel, and he's just in the way of some of it.
Yeah, what I dig about this is that I think Sand, this early on in the run, like, obviously they've set him up to be the leader, but part of you does suspect, like, did they build him up this much so that they could do this big dramatic death and, like, have it stick? Like, you know, are they pulling a Doyle, shall I say? but you know, doing this, and I mean, I guess I'm mildly spoiling things by suggesting that, you know, he's probably not gone for good, but the ending of this is really effective. I think it's really shocking, really dramatic, and the sort of the public display of it, and it makes you feel like, oh wait, how are they going to deal with this now? That like Cobra's completely one-upped them, and that's when the other half of the team are fighting this villain that took the entire, you know, DC universe to tackle. So this feels like it escalates really good. It starts with a bang and it ends with a bang. Now, admittedly, I do think the opening's more effective somehow. I don't know how that happened, but the start and end of this are exceptional.
Yeah, that first page and the first panel of the second page, I guess, is possibly some of the best work in this entire series so far.
Yeah. No, it's that page turn. It's that connective tissue between page 1 and page 2.
Yeah.
Is wonderful. And then this ending here is just, it goes in a direction where if you, at the start of this issue, you would never have called it would end with the villain assassinating on live TV one of our main heroes to prove that they shouldn't have interfered. Because I think it's not so much that he needed to feel more villainous, because the opening is so dark and makes him feel like he's just a vile prick from the get-go. But this ending says that not only is he that awful, not only is he this dangerous in what he does, he's this much of a threat to our main characters. They can't just walk in and save the day.
Yeah, that's it. It's all well and good. Oh, he can take down an undefended plane, right? Any villain can do that. And you know, we've seen that countless times with them just taking down a building or a plane or whatever, and it's not that impressive in its own right. This issue made it impressive by giving us a character we cared about on the plane first. But showing he can actually take out one of our heroes as relatively easily as he does is what shows that he's actually a really big threat. And going into the next issues, you know, it gives it some real weight beyond how are the rest of this, or not even the rest of the team, how are half of the team going to stop it? Yeah.
It makes stakes suddenly feel super high in a way that a lot of comic books can't achieve after several issues. The fact that in one issue it makes that this plot feel super weighty, and it's only half of the plot technically because there's two going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So no, it's a pretty big deal. If anything, like, I think the last couple of issues have been fantastic, but maybe this is the arc where JSA by Johns really becomes JSA by Johns, and why everyone talks about it so fondly is just how expertly this is pulled off.
I agree, and I think it's funny. It's funny how much longer Goya is a co-writer. Like it's a lot longer than you think.
Oh sure, yeah.
It's like 50. Like Goya's a co-writer till like the 50s or something like that. As much as this is, you know, even the DC trades market as this is JSA by Geoff Johns. Like everyone knows, but Goya has this credit for, like, you know, 50 odd issues still, and it's just way more than you think because it just feels so timeless, classic Johns.
Yeah. All right then, what are you giving it?
I will give it a 9. Honestly, I was tempted to give it the 8.5, but I think it earns just a little bit more than that.
I don't know. I feel like my debate is more, is it a 9 or a 9.5?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, come on. The start and end of this are exceptional.
No, they are phenomenal. Sometimes I'm there thinking I'm being generous, going up to the 9, and then you're making me look bad.
I feel like the only reason why this isn't a 10, because the way I talk about the opening especially, is that's the sort of couple of pages I expect in a 10 out of 10 comic. And the only reason why it's not in consideration for the 10 is because, the middle of it sort of becomes more just sort of set-up-y. It's not a bad setup, it's good setup, but it's not as exceptional as that first couple of pages is.
I agree. I think ultimately there's a little too much of that for me to even go to the 9.5. It's more like, okay, the stuff with the other half of the team, there's like 3 or 4 pages there which are perfectly good, necessary setup for whatever they're going to do in the next issue. But in this issue itself, they're like, yeah, okay, those pages were fine. And it's that section which probably drags it down from being, higher, even though I put it a 9.
I'll give it a 9 as well, but let it be known I considered going high.